Damages, a TV series that aired on FX networks between 2007 and 2012. It has 5 seasons and it features actresses Glenn Close and Rose Byrne as the main protagonist and antagonists. Now, Damages, at its central area for the plot, is about a law firm that takes in people that have been screwed over by big-time corporations. Already very intriguing. Most people would be able to relate to this. The main plot line revolves within the relationships of each individual character and one another. Mainly Glenn Close and Rose Byrne's characters' relationships. Glenn Close, being Patty Hughes, is the big-time hotshot at her own law firm, Hughes and Associates. Rose Byrne is the protege from the very beginning of said law firm, and their central storyline is basically about mentorship of toxicity. Meanwhile, they also coexist to take down big-time corporations and the corrupt. Now, the thing that's so different about Damages compared to the likes of Better Call Saul and even Breaking Bad and Criminal Minds and Law and Order is its plot structure, which its plot structure is very different and unorthodox compared to most other television series storylines. So Damages is a seasonal storyline that intertwines the intro and progression of each story per season with the outro of the storylines per season throughout. So basically you follow the events of what happens per season, and it's sprinkled in with outro stories of what ultimately ends up happening. Now, the thing that's so great about this is that it really helped with every dynamic in the first 2 seasons. In the first 2 seasons, the storylines were complex. The plot structure was magnificent. It was brilliant. The performances are basically flawless all around throughout the entire series. The first 2 seasons, hands down, are the greatest seasons of this whole series. This series honestly does start from the very top, from excellence, all the way down to somewhat mediocre by the end of it. Now, to get super into it, the reason I love the first 2 seasons is because the first 2 seasons established the plot structure, established the storylines, it established the characters, and it established excellent performances throughout everybody. By the end of the first season, you realize that's not just the main characters that are putting in the great performances. It's all around. If you were cast in Damages, you're going to do your job. Now, the first season of Damages, to me, honestly, is the best one of this entire series. The second season is almost on par with the first season. The only difference is that the first season actually had nothing but sympathetic, relatable characters, even in the big-time bigwigs. Every single character in the first season, they were flawed, yet super relatable, yet super rich, per se. In the second season, they had a lot more of a complex storyline at the risk of negating some sympathized characters. Now, the second season on its own stands out very strongly, and that's why I love these first 2 seasons individually, because each one does carry its own independent great thing about it. The third season is when this series doesn't exactly start to go downhill, more so as it gets more streamlined. It kind of panders to main audiences. The storyline ends up starting to get pretty linear in the third season. It's still a great season. It's a great storyline, great performances. The difference is that you're not thoroughly invested, you're not thoroughly confused or even complicated by the storylines. The third season on its own is pretty damn good as well. The problem that I have starts at season 4, where season 4 basically picks up in the kind of plot structure as season 3, but where season 3 still had its unique things to it. By season 4, the plot structure starts to feel very, very stale. And honestly, the storyline is very cliche. Season 4 deals a lot with taking down a military corporation, and it's the standard kind of stuff. The only difference, the only exception in season 4 that I will say that I liked about it, again, the performances, and there were a lot of twists and turns by the end of season 4. But hands down, honestly, season 4 is the worst season in this whole entire series. The 5th and final season of Damages does pick up a lot more steam that was dropped off in season 4 because it's basically the closing arc of the series. And I did really love season 5. I did love the plot structure that they used, which throughout the entire series is the same kind of time-skippy plot structure. And I did enjoy it again in the 5th and final season because they did pull out twists and turns within the plot structure by the end of the season. Now, this series is not terrible by any means at all, but where it started off with nothing but excellence, it also deteriorated itself into subpar mediocrity. It didn't exactly know how to take things further. The problem is they found a plot structure that not only worked in the first couple seasons, but it was actually very well planned and edited and structured, that they just basically continued to keep using it and using it and using it throughout the entire series. That's fine if this were a 2 or 3 season series, but this has 5 full seasons to really dig along that plot structure. And for the most part, it worked well to the series and the story's advantage, but it did complicate the fact that the plot structure gave away a lot of its twists. And that's fine when you do this plot structure correctly, such as in the first season, the second season, somewhat the third season. But season 4, even though there were twists and turns within it, it still felt very stale. But at the same time, overall, Damages is an excellent show. I honestly would recommend this entire series to everybody that is just very invested in law and the legal proceedings and court time and stuff like that. Plus, it also has the dynamic of having interpersonal, closed-off storylines within the main series. Now, overall for me, to break it down, I would say the first season is hands down a 10 out of 10. Second season, 9. Third season, I'd say, is an 8. Fourth season is a 6. And the 5th season, I would say, is a 7. And that's honestly where I land with the whole series. Damages, to me, is a 7 out of 10. But I will have to say, and preface as well, that I still strongly recommend everybody watching this series, if only just for the first 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons are just gold standards of television. Honestly, I grew up on late night FX shows like Justified, Sons of Anarchy, Nip Tuck, Rescue Me, and I honestly can't believe I always passed up watching Damages until now. I sat through Damages for the last almost week, binging the entire series. So I have the full thought behind this review against this series, for the good and for the bad. And overall for me, Damages is a 7 out of 10 because there were times throughout the series where, especially by the end, near the end of the series, it started to kind of get unbearable with the plot structure. But it's always held up by its strong performances. And the storylines are always interesting and intriguing, set aside season 4's cliched nature. And the twists are also actually pretty damn well thought out. So the writing is pretty good as well throughout the entire series. I'd say it's excellent, but like I said, it really brings down its own series when it keeps hitting you with the same kind of plotting throughout the entire series. So again, for a third time, Damages for me overall is a 7 out of 10. Thank you.